So good morning, everybody. My name is Eric Auger. I work at Red Hat in the virtualization team. Okay, thank you. And the topic of my talk today is Virtual I/O MMU. Virtual I/O MMU on ARM, because we are going to mostly focus on ARM, as I'm going to talk about the emulation of the ARM I/O MMU. But we are also going to talk about generic concepts, integration with VOS, with VFIO, and we will cover another alternative approach based on VirtIO. So here is the outline of my presentation. So first of all, I will present what we try to achieve with the Virtual I/O MMU in the ARM Virt machine. I will introduce some generic and ARM-specific terminology about I/O MMUs. And then in the first part of my talk, we will talk about the full emulation approach. So we will describe the ARM I/O MMU QEMU device, its integration with vHost and with VFIO. And we will especially talk about the challenges we faced with the VFIO integration, and this will pave the way naturally to the VirtIO I/O MMU approach, which fixes some issues we encountered before. So I will present the current model, the QEMU device, and I will talk also about a prototype that was carried out on x86 that aimed at demonstrating the performance of VirtIO I/O MMU against the VTD emulation solution. And eventually, I will complete this presentation with some performance figures, try to draw some pros and cons related to both solutions, and we will talk about next tasks to come. So first of all, what is the rationale behind introducing a Virtual I/O MMU? So without an I/O MMU, DMA-capable devices exposed to the guest are able to reach any guest physical address, and that's a security issue for the guest because it can jeopardize its integrity. Typically, the driver is buggy or misbehaving, and it can be kernel drivers or user space driver if we use VFIO. So by putting an I/O MMU between the device and the interconnect, you mandate the driver to use the DMA ops, and the I/O MMU is going to translate the addresses emitted by the endpoints, which now are I/O virtual address, into guest physical address. So it allows to protect and check each transaction and make sure that there is no guest physical address that is addressed and should not be. So here we are mostly interested in PCI Express endpoints connected downstream to the root complex. Also, we could consider protecting against platform devices, but this is not the primary goal here. It is worth noticing that those endpoints can be purely emulated device, VirtIO, vHost devices, but can also be host-assigned devices if we use VFIO PCI. And an important use case together with VFIO PCI is DPDK on the guest, because if we introduce a Virtual I/O MMU, so this means that we can use VFIO without the no I/O MMU mode, and we can have user space drivers running on the guest as well. And a longer term use case is nested virtualization if you assign an host device to a second level guest. And during this project, so we explored two modeling strategies. So as I mentioned before, the full emulation solution, which is the one that is currently used on other architecture, on x86 and Power. And it was worth trying whether it could work simply reusing the same framework. And we covered also the para-virtualization solution, which is backed from the very beginning by ARM. And we considered the two approaches. So first of all, some terminology about the I/O MMU translation. So we can split the translation into two parts. The first part is the configuration lookup. here, which is address agnostic. It takes as input a stream ID, which characterizes the DMA device which emitted the transaction. This is a unique identifier for the IOMMU. The configuration lookup takes this input plus the overall register state of the IOMMU and computes the page tables, the start address of the page tables that are going to be used. And it also decodes some information that will be used in the second step, the page table walk. Those information typically are the granule size, the input-output address range, the execution state where we are, the security states, and so on. And once we have done this first step, so we can do the actual page table work, which first starts with a lookup in the TLB, which are caches in the hardware, and if we miss the translated address in the TLB, so we do the page table work in memory. And this step is taking the input address plus protection flags, and eventually, so we get the translated address. So some implementations of IOMMU support several stages. So if you use a stage 1 on bare metal, so this means that you program the device in IOVA, and the first stage is going to translate the IOVA into host physical address. So this is the first stage. Then you can use a stage 2, which is meant for virtualization, in which case you are going to translate a guest physical address into an host physical address, and you can combine both. This was meant for that on ARM. You start with stage 1, and then you do the stage 2. This is called nested stages. So on Intel, you also have 2 stages, but the difference is that the first stage is dedicated to request with PASIT, so it's not exactly the same use case. Here we have a first stage for scatter-gather and the second stage for virtualization. So let's have a look now at the emulation code, emulation solution. So first of all, I would like to introduce a little bit the hardware. So the IOMMU hardware is already quite fragmented. We have 3 versions of the SMMU hardware spec. The V1 specified a stage 2 device only, so meant for for virtualization. It complied with the V7 virtual memory system architecture, and it supports those granules. And what is important is that in this specification also, all the configuration structures so that are used in the configuration lookup are located in registers. So it puts a constraint on the number of stream IDs that can be used, on the number of contexts that can be used. So it's a limitation which is defined by the hardware, which is implementation defined. Then you had the V2 specification, which introduced the support of stage 1, stage 2, and stage 1 plus stage 2. Okay? And obviously, so this comes with large updates in the hardware itself, because the TLB structure needed to be changed to support those new use cases. And also the design becomes hierarchical, so you have a central unit, and you have satellites, which are called translation buffer units, on which the devices are plugged. And so it becomes hierarchical. And then you have the V3 specification, which complies with the V8 virtual memory system architecture. So I forgot to mention that in V2, so we complied with V8, and it supports 32 and 64 bit. And so V3 is a large departure versus the previous version, so it's not backward compatible with the previous version. The rationale behind is that the register-based API has been largely moved into in-memory structure. This is the case for the configuration structure, which are moved in memory. But also you have the capability to send commands in queues which lay in memory. And also the device is able to report events in an event queue, which also lays in memory. And you have also new features like PCI Express, ATS, PRI, and PASID. So when we're looking at the implementation we wanted for full emulation, so we did not start from scratch, actually, because there was a model existing for the SMMU v2, which was developed by Xilinx, and which is currently maintained out of Tree. So this model is quite comprehensive in terms of support. You have stage 1, stage 2, stage 1 plus stage 2. It was meant, I think, for SoC modeling, basically. And so this was the first choice we could make to start. And more recently, we had a contribution from Broadcom, which developed SMMU v3 model, but unfortunately, this contribution was interrupted. So what we had in mind was upstream, because neither of those solutions are upstream today. And we also wanted to integrate with vHost and VFIO, because none of those solutions also integrated with those technologies. So my choice was to choose the SMMU v3 model to start with, because I considered the hardware was more server-oriented, so we had this in-memory structures, the move to in-memory API, so I thought it was more, it removes the limitation on the number of contexts, on the number of stream IDs, so it's more server-oriented. And we had the support for PCI Express features like PRI and ATS. So then if we look at the SMMU v3 emulation code today, so it supports stage 1 or stage 2. The focus was on stage 1 at the moment. It supports 64-bit state translation only, so not 32-bit at the moment. This can be added later when we improve the maturity of the code. We are able to instantiate this virtual IOMMU with DT and SCPI. And so, as usual, so we have a limited set of features as of now, because the goal is to upstream it. So I try to clean and remove all that was not tested. And typically, we are not supporting PCI, ATS, PASID, PRI, MSI, Ultrazone, and so on. So it's about 2,400 lines of code. The code is split in a part which is SMMU model agnostic. So basically, it contains everything that relates to the IOMMU memory region infrastructure, the page table lookup, which is independent on the model. And we have a part that is specific to SMMU v3 with the MMIO emulation. The big part is the configuration structure decoding, the stream table entries and context descriptors, and the handling of IRQ and event queues. So then, started from this code base, we wanted to integrate with vHost and VFIO. So there was a presentation last year about vHost integration, so I just would like to remind you the main concepts. So when vHost gets an address to be translated, it first asks an IoT-LB cache, which is in the kernel. If there is a miss, so you ask the user space to translate the address. So it goes through the vHost IoT-LB API. And once you get the translation over, so you update the content of the IoT-LB cache. And the second part of the integration is when the guest invalidates some mappings. So you need to notify the kernel and invalidate the entries in the IoT-LB cache. So the first part is basically already implemented in VirtIO. So what we needed to add in the existing code was the orange path. So basically this consists in each time the SMMU v3 driver sends invalidation comments on the configuration or mapping structures. So we call vHost notifiers to update the content of the cache. So there is no blocker behind this task. And now I'm going to talk about the VFIO integration, which is more challenging on ARM. Let's start with the view without any virtual IOMMU. So the goal is to expose a host PCI endpoint to the guest, and the guest is going to program this later with a guest physical address. However, eventually, so you have, on the hardware side, you have a physical IOMMU, which is between the PCI endpoint and the interconnect. And this one is going to translate the GPA, guest physical address, into a host physical address. And this programming is done by VFIO. And this is part of the control path of the assignment by VFIO. So the guest has absolutely no idea that this translation happens. So now if you look at what happens if you add the virtual IOMMU, so now the PCI endpoint is going to be programmed with IOVA. This IOVA is translated into a guest physical address by the VirtIO IOMMU. So this is the job of the virtual IOMMU. And afterwards, so you have the usual second translation stage that is performed by VFIO, which is programmed by the VFIO, and which does the GPA to host physical address translation. So you can see clearly that there are two logical translation stages. However, if you look at the way it is implemented typically on Intel today, so I told you that Intel has two stages, two levels of translation, but one is reserved for the shared virtual memory use case. So what they did is they combined the two logical translation stages into a single physical one, and this job is done by the VFIO PCI QEMU device, which makes everything to combine the two stages and program the physical IOMMU eventually. So this means that each time the guest updates any configuration or translation structure, the host somehow must be notified to update, to reprogram the combination into the physical IOMMU. So this means also that you need to be able to trap on all of those events. And this is the issue on ARM, because we need a mean to force the SMMU v3 driver to send in validation commands for all configuration and translation structure updates. And we don't have this mean if we look at the hardware. On Intel, this is a bit different because there is a so-called caching mode hardware bit that is exposed in the capability register. And if this bit is set, you tell the driver to send in validation commands on each structure update. So it was meant for that, so we use this modality to allow the hypervisor to trap on those events. So on ARM, we don't have that. And we had a second issue which relates to the DPDK use case. DPDK is using huge pages, and when the driver invalidates huge pages, we would need to have an invalidation command that is able to invalidate the huge page in one shot. And unfortunately, we don't have this with the ARM SMMU. We are only able to invalidate by granule. So this means that if you invalidate a huge page, so the driver is looping on all the granules in the huge page and send as many invalidation commands. So this is really inefficient when you run DPDK on guest. So what I propose is to introduce some software caching mode. We added an option in the SMMU v3 driver set by the firmware Quirk to force the driver to invalidate structures on map and not only on unmap. And to overcome the second issue, so I proposed an implementation-defined command that would be able to invalidate a whole range instead of a granule. Unfortunately, this approach is knocked by the kernel driver, the kernel maintainer, sorry. So there are good reasons behind. So the first one is that it does not comply with virtual memory with the VMSA architecture, with the hardware spec. So this is the first good reason. And as for the second ID, so normally the hardware spec allows to implement implementation-defined commands, but the problem is that we may have some future hardware that use the slot that we currently use for this artificial command. And by the way, this is what we are exposing to the guest is not the standard SMMU v3 driver. It's something that is modified. So we start doing some paravirtualization, and the argument then is, why don't you do simply paravirtualization, full paravirtualization? So what other solutions do we have? So we could implement some write protection on the table, but it's quite a mess in general. Then the other solution is to use the two physical stages, because I explained you that we are using a single stage today, and we are going to see what is the interest in using the two physical stage, and the first solution is the one I'm going to expose just after, is Virtaio IOMMU. Okay, if we use two physical stage, how does it help? So it does help because as it was devised for that, so the stage one would be owned by the guest. So this means that the stage one tables would be fully controlled by the guest, part of the configuration structure, the context descriptor as well. So this means that the host only cares about GPA to HPA translation, so you don't need to notify the host each time there is a change in the guest mapping. So it removes the need for the firmware quirk we proposed just before. So this is the big advantage. Now it comes with some challenges because currently VFIO programs the IOMMU so that the stage one is being used, and now we would need to use the stage two, so we need an API for that. There is still lots of resources to be software virtualized. So I told you part of the configuration structure needs to be software virtualized. This is the stream table, which does the association between the stream table entry and context. So it would be a security hole to leave the guest to control this table. And we have also the registers, the queues, the interrupts, and so on. Also, on top of that, we will need to introduce new APIs, an API to pass the stage one information to the host, so to pass the STA information, an API to report errors, because with this solution, the hardware is fully handling the translation, and if the translation fails, it fills some events in the physical event queue, and the hypervisor will need to sort out those events, detect those that are targeting the guest, fill virtual events in the virtual queue, and trigger some virtual interrupts. So there is this control flow needs to be requires an API, and so the last 2 points are quite closely related to the shared virtual memory discussion which are happening on the mailing list today. So I think this will happen, but it is a long road, and well, that's it. So the third alternative is a paravirtualization approach, and that's the topic now. So in April this year, so ARM, Jean-Philippe Brucker, who is in this room, submitted a draft specification for a Virtaio IOMMU driver and device, accompanied with some firmware notes, so how to probe with DT, with ACPI, a KVM tool example device, and also some extensions that could be of high added value for the future. And since that, so we had 2 revisions. The last one was this Monday, so the slides already are outdated because we are at revision 0.5 now. And built on these specifications, so there are several Virtaio IOMMU, QEMU Virtaio IOMMU device revisions which were upstreamed, which are not upstream, but which were submitted, sorry. So the principle of this integration is that the Virtaio IOMMU driver sends requests into a single request virt queue. So this is based on the MMIO transport layer, not the PCI one. So this is outdated because now we have two queues, one to expose faults, but this will be updated. And there are three categories of requests. So attach, detach, map, unmap, and probe, which was introduced laterly. And each request is split in two parts, so one device readable and one device writable. So this means that you have two descriptors each time per request. So I will not enter into the details of the API, but basically you have a device abstraction. So this corresponds to the unique identifier which enters into the IOMMU. You have the notion of address space, which is a collection of mappings, and devices are attached to address spaces. And all the devices attached to the address space share the same mappings. And so laterly, we introduced a new probe request, which allows the driver to query some information from the endpoint. Because you need to remember that this endpoint can be a physical host assigned 1, which has its own physical IOMMU behind. And in that case, so it's interesting to get information about the physical topology, typically, and also some features from the physical IOMMU, like the types of granules which are supported. So we have a QEMU VirtIO IOMMU device. We support the main use cases today. So the vHost and VFIO integration was done by Bharat Bhushan from NXP. And so overall, it's about 1,300 lines of code, but you need to keep in mind that you have the same amount of code on the driver side because you have a new driver. And an x86 prototype was done. It was done in the Red Hat virtualization team by Peter Shaw, who is in this room as well. So if you have questions on this, we will be able to answer. So the job consisted in doing some small modifications in QEMU in the Q35 machine. So we needed to instantiate VirtIO MMIO bus because it's not used by x86 today. We needed to bypass the MSI region in the VirtIO IOMMU device. This is the difference between x86 and ARM. So on ARM, the MSI are translated by the IOMMU. On x86, they are not. So we did a hack that is not needed anymore because the new specification allows to query the MSI reserved regions through the probe request. So this will be removed. And so on kernel side, so I did not mention, I forgot to mention it, but we do not support SCPI probing today because this is not fully specified. However, we have a prototype running on ARM based on a SCPI IORT table, but it's not really public today. And so what we did on x86 is that we fully bypassed the firmware handling and we passed the MMIO window via the kernel boot params. And we have some limitations today. We support only a single VirtIO IOMMU. We use the PCI requester ID directly as a device ID. It may be more complex than that in the future. And we removed any code related to the platform bus. And most importantly, so DMA map ops were implemented in the VirtIO IOMMU driver. And this works fine. So now I finished the presentation of the full emulation solution, of the paravirtualization solution, and I would like to finish this presentation by some performance figures first, and also by some pros and cons. So first of all, I would like to acknowledge that so I collected those performance figures just before beginning, so it's very basic. And I don't claim that so we will need to do some macro benchmarks. But here, at the moment, so I only did micro benchmarks, so based on netperf and iperf, TCP, throughput measurements. So I have two setups, so one on ARM and one on x86. So the purpose here is not to compare between both. I would like to insist because they are not comparable in terms of performance, so you will see that later. The purpose is to replicate the setup. So one setup is made of two machines which are identical, connected back-to-back together with a 10 gigabit per second connection. The server of each, so netperf server or hyper server is running on one bare metal on one side, and on the other side I'm running a VM, and the client is running in the guest. And the purpose was to collect figures, throughput figures between the server and the one host and one guest, and the guest is running with different configurations. So first I tried without any virtual IOMMU, then I tried with emulation approach, and then I tried with a para-virtualization approach. Okay, so this means that on Intel, so I run Virtual System MMU v3 and VirtIO IOMMU, and in x86 I run VTD and VirtIO IOMMU. I did not do any tuning because I'm not a network expert. And so what is running on the guest side is a single VirtIO NetPCI, which is using the MAOPS. So this means that we are measuring dynamic mappings and not static or persistent mappings. So it's not a DPDK use case, but on the other hand, it is more stringent in terms of, because it has some patterns which do map and map, map and map. So this is much more complex than a basic static pattern. So let's start with ARM benchmarks. So first, what you can notice is that so we are not reaching the 10 gigabit per second throughput. I would like to say that even between the two hosts, so without talking about virtualization, we are capped at 5 gigabit per second. And naturally, when we run the guest, even with no IOMMU, we are at this level. So I would like to say that it's a bit disappointing. So performances are not good today, especially in TX. So here in stream on netperf, so you have bad performance figures. So you have figures when vhost is off and vhost is on each category. So what we can see today is that SMMU v3 performs better than VirtIO MMU when vhost is on in general. And there is a huge difference in RX that, to be honest, we are not able to analyze today to explain. So this will be the next step. Also, SMMU v3 is better in TX. And curiously as well, so in RX, when vhost is off, we have basically the same parameter, the same performance here. Which is a bit curious because Virtual IOMMU is doing explicit mapping, and the virtual system MMU v3 is sharing page tables, so we should have an overhead induced by this explicit mapping, and we don't observe this in RX. And so the machine that is used on ARM is a gigabyte machine, so this is available now, you can purchase it. So now we look at the figures on a next generation ARM 64-bit server, and so it's much better, so it looks closer to what is observed on x86, because we can reach this throughput. So it's not as good as x86, but it's closer. Okay, so now let's look at x86 benchmarks. So I'm comparing different guest configurations, so without any IOMMU. So here, without surprise, we are reaching the 10 gigabit per second, almost. And different configurations for the VTD emulation code and eventually the VirtIO IOMMU performance. So by default, the VTD emulation code and the driver is running in deferred invalidation mode. This means that it batches invalidation commands, IOTLB invalidation commands, and every 10 milliseconds, so it purges the queue and sends all the commands in one shot. And you can see that with this configuration, we are performing very good, actually. And however, if you remove this option, I would like also to insist on the fact that this is less secure, as this optimization removes the full security, okay? Because you leave some IoTLB entries valid, whereas they should not be valid anymore. So there is a security hole that is acceptable in some circumstances, but not always. So if you remove this optimization, so you enter what is called the strict mode, where you have synchronous IoTLB invalidation. And in that case, you have much more traps, and you can see that the figures are decreased quite a lot. And then if you does explicit mapping, so if you implement the caching mode, what will be implemented with VFIO, you decrease also the figures. And you need to understand that the VirtIO IOMMU today is behaving in this mode, okay? So normally, we should have something closer, close to those figures, but we are not as good, and we need to understand why. So I would like really to insist on the fact that those figures are indicative and very useful for the next task that will be performed, but they are not fair, because we are comparing a VirtIO IOMMU driver that is absolutely not optimized for performance, same for the device, to be honest, with something that is fully mature, which implements some IoTLB invalidation strategy, optimization strategies, so it's not really fair. So now we know what we need to do with respect to the VirtIO IOMMU optimization. We can easily implement the deferred IoTLB invalidation, so this mode, because it's pure software, actually. We can avoid to do explicit mapping, so we can avoid to do the caching mode by sharing pages. We need also to introduce IoTLB emulation in the QEMU device. So a patch was done by Thomas Nowicki on this, and we need to integrate that. And also, the VirtIO IOMMU allows vhost IOMMU, and this is also something that may be very interesting. So those figures are the starting point, and they are not the final figures we will get, for sure. Well, just to try to compare between the two solutions. So obviously, with Virtual SysMMU v3, you are running an unmodified guest. You reuse the SMMU v3 driver, which is well optimized, mature, and so on. However, so the drawback is that you have a huge QEMU device, which is still incomplete because lots of features need to be added. This model is specific to the SMMU v3, even if the architecture fully allows to add SMMU v2 just after. And we saw that so it's difficult today to integrate with VFIO because we are missing some hardware features, actually. We can do something else in software, but so this will be a long path, okay? On the other hand, VirtIO IOMMU benefit is that it is generic, reusable, and different architecture. This is an extensible API that, so it's fairly easy. You can add features easily because it's not tied to the hardware. So typically to implement all these optimizations we have talked about before, so it will be fairly easy. For shared virtual memory as well, we can enhance the API. We can implement vhost with this solution and do in-kernel emulation. We have seen that the QEMU device is simpler. The driver is simpler compared to the full SMMU v3 driver as well. Also, I need to say that if we implement all the extensions we are thinking of, so it will become huger. We must keep this in mind. So the drawback is that it is based on Virtio MMIO today, and we have seen that x86 is not very familiar with this transport mode, does not use it, I would say. Something special also with the Virtio IOMMU QEMU device is that there are some architecture-specific hooks in it, typically related to the MSI window retrieval and so on. So the fact that on x86 we bypass the transaction. On ARM we bypass the MSI transactions. On ARM we don't. So there will be some architecture-specific code inside the Virtio IOMMU device. Obviously, mapping structures are duplicating between the host and the guest. And the drawbacks are, this is paravirtualization, so what do we do with Windows guest? We are at the very beginning of the specification effort, so in Oasis, and also the SCPI needs to be discussed, because so currently we have the solution based on IORT, but other architectures are using other tables. So we are at the beginning of the upstream effort on the kernel and upstream and QEMU side. And so the drawback today is that we have something that uses explicit mapping, so we should decrease the performance, but we have seen that we have some optimization in mind to remove that. So what's next? So I think today we have the two models support the most important use cases. So we have Virtio, vHost, VFIO, DPDK. So please test and report any bug, performance issues you may find. It will be very helpful. So we need to work on the Virtio IOMMU specification and a CPI probing proposal. There are some new extensions typically related to shared virtual memory, guest host injections that relate to this specification definition. And so there are quite a lot of code to review. And I think the next month we are going to work on those optimization strategies, both on Virtual System MUV3 side and Virtio IOMMU side, to bridge the gap between what you saw in terms of performance between x86 and ARM. So I'm done with this presentation. So I would like to thank you for your attendance. And if you have some questions, so we are a bit short of time, but you can ask any question. Okay. And I would like to say that this is a collaborative project, so made in tight cooperation with ARM, with many people, with Bharat for the VFIO integration, and with Thomas Nowicki, with Lainu Sherian, so all people that help debugging, testing, and so on. So please, questions.
Is there not some horrible circular case where you changed the mappings for the Virtio, for the Virt queues themselves, that Virtio MMIO is using?
Sorry, I'm not sure I caught your question.
So I'm saying, is there some case, I mean, is there a, when you're sending these commands to the host, is there some transaction, is there some sort of commit stage where you want the changes to take effect?
So actually, in the moment, so everything is synchronous, and this is protected by a lock. So it may decrease the performance quite a lot, but that's the way it is implemented today.
Okay. All right.
So I was also wondering about that, the strict versus non-strict mode there.
Yeah.
Is that a limitation of the kernel implementation, or is it on, where is the? So
actually the implementation, the deferred invalidation strategy implementation is missing in the Virtio IOMMU driver. Because it's pure software, so if you look at the Intel driver, IOMMU driver code, It's a pure software mechanism that will be, I think, quite easily implemented in the Virta.ui UMMU driver. So I don't think there is any blocking point doing that trick.
No, but you were saying that there was a security hole on the x86 side when invalidating. And I thought that that was kind of the way it works in the IOMMU on the Intel side is that you can queue the transactions instead of sending one transaction by one in the registry. Isn't that what you're talking about with strict versus non-strict?
Okay, so actually there are some papers on this existing. There are different IoT-LB invalidation optimization strategies. Deferred invalidation so there is a security hole, but this is an option that you can turn on or off. And the problem is that if you reassign the device emitting this stream ID to another VM, it can still use the IoT-LB entry that was not invalidated. So it's known, I think.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much for your attention.